And good evening, fellow wafflers and travellers in space and time, and welcome back. It is Monday, therefore it must be the fantasy and science fiction writing stream twitchy thing, which is what we are here for. So welcome one and welcome all to the stream. It's Monday. We've survived a day of the week, which is always hard work, but there we go. Fantastic. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to Monday and the waffle stream. Waffles guaranteed, obviously. And hopefully some vague insights into this business and writing and all that kind of good stuff as well, and maybe some, minor distractions and minor side avenues that we go and explore. But who knows? Who knows what the evening has in store? We shall find out, inevitably. Anyway, right, who do we have? Haunted Loaf is here. Commander Sonak is here. Hello, Commander Sonak. Good to see you. Wintermute GB is here. Of course, Wintermute GB. Good to see you as well. Commander Glenn is here. Commander Terraforma, JR1988 is here as well. DJ Squibby is here. Chris Viking is here. Nimdriskin is here. The Arakis is here, fresh from the invasion of the Harkonnens. So the St. Going Well is here. Mad Monksoft is here. Bograt, hello Bograt, good to see you as well. The Shadow Wyvern is here. Big 39 GT is here. Sean is here. Excellent, well done. So, well done for switching on your PC or your phone and going click. Congratulations, most impressive. And Alexa is off. Darn, fall again. I can't escape the feeling the Hatpin is wearing flared trousers. Well, of course it is. It's a sort of exaggerated AT-AT, I think. Yeah, there you go. Wintermute is gonna change his username to of course. Then I can just go, of course is here. Of course. Because. Or maybe because would be a good one as well. Are we elite writers? Is it? See, so this is where the elite writers gather in secrecy. Not very secret, to be fair. We should have some sort of code word, shouldn't we, for gain access? I don't know how that's going to work. Are the Harkonnens here? I haven't seen the Harkonnens tonight. No, I don't know if they're here tonight. They might be. They tend to show up on other evenings, so they're dastardly Harkonnens. Commander Tragic Blue is here as well. 07 Commanders. It's an 88. It's a 70s AT-AT. Oh, somebody's Glenn's already ahead of me and made that joke. at staying alive. You guys are on form tonight. I can see it's going to be a long evening. Ah dear. I think I need more experience. I think I'm at Scribbler and I need to get another 60 to move up to the paperback writer. Ah, yes. Well, yeah, Chris, come on, Chris. You are a highly talented individual. You know that. We will willingly welcome Waffles, says Glenn, because who doesn't like a little bit of alliteration? Now here come the Harkonnens. They were hiding in the sand all along, waiting to ambush us. Those dastardly Harkonnens. There they come. Welcome. Killian Bagler is here as well. Good morning. Good morning. Where are you? Oh dear. It's been that kind of day. By the way, you really need to change the time of my starters. Yes, but the problem is it's time for streaming throughout the week is at a bit of a premium at the moment. I've run into all sorts of things which have upset my schedule. And, such as it was, and so the best laid plans of mice and men and all that. I know I shouldn't use cliches as a writer, but cliches are good because they're cliches, right? A bad cliche doesn't become a cliche because it disappears. So obviously cliches therefore are good. That's my definition. And unfortunately, Friday evenings is I try and spend some time with my wife. I know that's very very old-fashioned. But Friday night is sort of our night, so I can't really stream on Friday nights. So Thursday nights I could do, Friday afternoons I could do, Saturdays I'm already doing a stream. Sunday is my day off. Okay, Monday I'm doing this one. Tuesday and Wednesday I've got some other stuff I need to do, and then it's back to Thursday again. So hey, there's not enough time in the week. This is the problem. There's not enough time in the week. I know. How dare me. It's outrageous behaviour for a married man, isn't it? Dear. Never mind. Anyway, welcome one and welcome all to the Waffle stream. How are you all doing? It's good to see you. It's always nice to be back here on Monday. Yeah, I look forward to this stream. Not obviously because of your august company and everything else. but it's just, I like getting Monday out of the way. I feel I can cope with the rest of the week because Monday's just one of those days where it's just like it's the first day off the weekend, and it's just hard. You get up on Monday and go, oh my god, the entire week's ahead. Whereas Tuesday, I kind of think, well, I've not one down, so the rest can't be too bad, right? So I don't know. Swap with Thursday night. Yeah, but the problem, Sean, my No Man's Sky fans would come after me with pitchforks because that's their night now. No Man's Sky sort of took over from Elite on the Thursdays, so I can't turf them out. I mean that would just be wrong and mean and stuff. So I don't know. It's a tricky one. I mean, at some point I will rejig the streams, but right now. Yeah, and Mad Monksoft is quite correct that the only working day is Wednesday because obviously Monday is too close to the weekend. Nobody can do any work on Monday. Tuesday is therefore too close to Monday to count, and Friday obviously is the weekend. Thursday is the day before the weekend, so you're not going to do much before the weekend, are you? And then so therefore Wednesday is the only working day of the week. I have worked with several people who definitely subscribe to that hypothesis. But there we go, never mind. So don't cross the streams. That's extremely dangerous as well, isn't it? We mustn't do that. Dear. Who knows, if you turf them out, they might maroon you on some stream. Well, this is the problem, you say, yes. We're trying to fit. And it's interesting, I mean, I don't stream for numbers and I don't stream for any kind of financial gain because it's really very very small change in those kind of things. So I stream because I enjoy it and it's good fun chatting with people. That's what I like to do, and it's interesting because the numbers on the streams are quite comparable. The Star Citizen stream is a bit more popular, I think, in terms of actual numbers, but I get way more interaction on this stream, surprisingly enough. Talking to myself, listening to myself speak. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? But yeah, so I get more interaction on this stream. I get because there's sort of more puns and stuff that tickles my sense of humour going on in this stream, which you probably noticed. And this stream is probably closest to my heart in some ways because this is kind of our stream. There's no other content other than what we bring to it because it's just chatting and. We can go anywhere that our imagination can take us on this stream. Whereas the other one's obviously game playing streams, and the retro stream is a lot of fun because it's all about playing. It's all about nostalgia and how simple and wonderful things were in the past. And obviously the modern games are fun as well because they're pushing the envelope for what the art of the possible is. So that's quite good. Do you get many cross viewers? Well, they cross all the time, Glenn. Oh, you mean cross viewers, right? Who find you for one day? I mean, there's quite a few people I recognise. I mean, quite a few of you guys, obviously, who do follow me into some of the other streams. So, there seems to be a sort of, there is a bit of cross pollination. Not. Glenn's not very cross. So it's there is cross pollination. I've had a few comments, basically saying, how come listening to some. Very, very average middle-aged man is becoming compelling viewing for me every week, to which I have no answer. It's not my fault, if you like listening to me. I've had a few compliments actually from a few people who said, my wife likes you as well, which I don't quite know what to make of that. So why is she watching the stream? But anyway, so all the wives out there who are watching the stream and then for some bizarre reason find this, my waffling amusing. Hello and welcome. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Winter Mute, cross, I'm livid. So it's a ladies' night. Can my wife join in? Yes, of course she can. Yes. All by the retro stream here because it reminds me that I'm old. Oh, poor old Sean. My wife, Big 39 GT says, my wife doesn't get you at all. Excellent. Well, there we go. Obviously, it's a niche that I'm appealing to. Rob's 2610. Good evening, Drew. Good evening, all. How is everyone? We're good. We are good. It's Monday. We've survived a day. I'm Brian, and so is my wife. Commander JR19. My wife offers up comments on occasion as she's sitting here listening. Hello, Commander JR1988's wife. It's good to have you listening in. Dear. My wife doesn't get space games. She comes playing with spaceships. Right, sorry, I'm not quite sure what you said there, man. Oh, she calls it playing with spaceships. Okay, fair enough. So my wife offers up comments on occasion, but you don't pass them on. Does she get to disagree? Which is absolutely fine, of course. That's absolutely fine. Professor Siege, Dru-ids, and all, hello, good to see you. I hear more wives would watch you if you made the background purple. Ah, yeah, well, maybe I could try that. That's a very good suggestion. Maybe I'm going to try that. That's a long way back. I like Drew's gaming streams because I can point to them as proof to my wife that middle-aged men playing computer games is perfectly natural, and I'm not that weird. I may have news for you there, Julie. Sorry. Sorry, I'm not sure your argument. That's a great deal of firm foundations to stand on. I'd say she gets it. What's more fun than playing with spaceships? Well, exactly. The thing is, I mean, this whole playing with spaceships thing is, you know, I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. Okay, you know, I would have failed the medical. I would have failed the eyesight test. I probably wasn't smart enough, and I probably don't have the reactions to be a fighter pilot or any of those things. So my chances of actually becoming a space pilot of any kind were incredibly small. But you know, I loved space. Who doesn't love space, right? So it was very much my ambition at a very young age to be a spaceman. But that quickly receded once I alas having to start growing up. But you know, space games it appeals to the youngster in me. Particularly Star Citizen at the moment, because all I'm doing literally on Star Citizen, I think this is quite funny, because technically it's my most popular stream. All I'm doing on Star Citizen is I'm getting in my spaceship, fiddling around with a few doors, going, oh look, the thing opens, landing on the planet, taking off again, landing on the planet, taking off again, and going, hey, I can fly a spaceship. And that to me is really exciting. Maybe I'm just a very sad individual, but there we go, never mind. It just proves all middle-aged men are weird. I think that's probably a fairly reasonable assumption, isn't it, Sean? Yes. Big 39 says, I'm in the kitchen and the wife is watching Mastermind in the living room. Well, there you go. Can't compete with that. It just proves there are a lot of crazy people out there like us. And I think that's okay. You know, I think if you have an interest, right, in something, if it's, you know, whether it's spaceships or playing marbles or, you know, home decorating or crocheting or collecting stamps or whatever it is that you like doing, where's the harm in that, right? It's fine. I mean, you should try being a writer. That's really weird. Yeah, if you really want weird. But so, you know, so just, you know, if you've got a partner who either shares your interest, which is cool, or doesn't share your interest but is like, you get on with it, that's absolutely fine, I'm going to go off and do something else, that's good as well. You know, so, you know, partners like that, thumbs up. We record Mastermind and watch it on YouTube. You record it, do you, Wintermute GB, on what? On cassette tape? Yeah, you're definitely portraying your age there. Record it. Do you press record? And you, at the end, you press rewind. Ah, dear. Do you record or fade away? That's that skeleton. Was it which video company was that? Was that BASF or was it? No, what company was it? Big 39. Oh, was it Scotch? Yes, was it Sharp or Scotch? I can't remember. I'm going to tell you how it's going to be. It was Scotch. It was Scotch's lifetime guarantee. Take what you want, both night and day, and re-record, not fade away. That's brilliant. That is a blast from the past. Oh dear. So the stream is now going. The chat is going past so fast. I can't actually read it. Dear. Right, do a whole stream opening and closing the rear wrap. I should actually on Star Citizen. Yes. Think young and you'll stay young, Commander Sonax says. I think that's excellent advice. Oh look, I did a thing has to be your most said thing on your stream. I'm absurdly pleased with myself when I do anything. Barnes Semmer says, hi, hello Barnes Semmer, good to see you. Commander saying, I'm 67 going on 18, that's excellent. Yeah, I subscribe. I don't feel much different, really, to when I was a teenager. I mean, I'm bigger and heavier and far less fit, and I have much less hair. But other than that, and I'm probably much less attractive. Not that I was particularly attractive every day, but you know what I mean. But in kind of all the other ways that count, I don't feel that much different. I still muck about. You know, it does not have to be weird. It's just easy that way. It got quite right. My wife is watching one of her programs on Netflix while I walk my 4 dogs listening to Waffle. I like this, the fact that I'm this portable Dru. Here I am across the interwebs. People are walking their dogs and sitting in their kitchens and I don't know, doing the ironing. I think it's just funny. Barnes says, you're like my dad. Lovely. Dear. Computer games is one of the biggest entertainment industries. It is. I mean, that's a very, very good point. Record, not fade away. JR98, I like how your streams are so affirming, Drew, right before you crush us with the egg. Yeah, we go from one extreme to the other. It's all affirming and happy, and then, by the way, your existence is utterly futile, by the way. Just remind you, just throwing that in. Big 39 GT still tapes things. I know, I'll just record that. I'll just tape it. Put it on the video. You know, all those phrases, actually, they date, don't they? I'm imagining an infinite loop of Drew operating the ramp and seeing how long it takes for people to realise. That could be good. Please be kind and rewind, says Professor Siege. Oh dear, that was quite good. Maxwell's one was a bit more hatred. There's a Smash adverts next. Yeah, there are all sorts of things. Oh dear. Break the sound barrier, set up a camcorder, put it at the computer screen recording on Betamax. The nostalgia really brings the audience to life. Those. Are we just reminiscing Waffle, or is there an actual plan of Waffle tonight? Either way, I'm fine. I'm not sure. I don't usually. What I try not to do. I'm a little bit like. For those of you in the UK will know this. It's a bit like the two Ronnies. It's the Waffle section of the stream is never planned. I sort of end up riffing on whatever you guys come up with. So it's your fault. Okay. Depending on how long the waffle runs, it's entirely your fault because you come up with things in the chat and I go, that's the thing. Dear. Chidi says, I look back and think now at the age of 16, I saw 50-year-olds as an ancient species. Closing on 50, I realise that 50-year-olds are generally 16-year-olds with more aches, money and things to forget. It's very true. I mean, I say this a lot to young people. You know, and it's not very often, to be honest, anymore, because nobody seeks my advice on anything important for reasons I don't really understand. But on the rare occasions I am asked for advice by younger people, I always give them the same advice. I said, don't expect to ever know what the heck is going on or what you should be doing about it. Okay, everybody is faking it. Nobody's got it made. Nobody's going, yes, I'm totally in command of the situation now. Ever since I hit 40 years old, absolutely everything is fine. I know precisely what I'm doing. I know exactly where I'm going. Everything is utterly sorted, and everything's okay. You never reach that point in your life, okay? So if you're young and looking at the older folks around you going, damn, I wish I was them. They seem so chilled out and laid back and everything's okay for them. No, okay. We're all just totally paranoid inside, just as much as everybody else ever was, okay? All you do is you get better at faking it, okay? That's it. You'll be having a beta. A beta was always better than VHS. It was! My dad had a Betamax video recorder. He was very proud of it for a couple of years. And then he wasn't. And I think we succumbed to getting a VHS one eventually. Debate between chrome and metal tapes. Oh, yes, because in the olden days you had a little selector on it, didn't you, to choose those sort of things. So I'm 50 this year and love it. I can moan at people in the world and people don't question why I'm moaning, they just expect it. Lying with confidence, indeed. Ah, dear. This no one knows what they're doing especially applies to government leaders. Yes, we're all winging it. We are all winging it. We are all winging it. It's just, don't. What is it? It's an American phrase, I think. Don't sweat the small stuff, which I sort of interpret to, you know, you're going to have problems regardless all the time. Okay, that's just life. You know, life is going to chuck crap at you at fairly regular intervals. Throughout your entire life, you can never get away from it. You tend to have this thing. I mean, certainly I did, and a lot of my friends when I was young. You know, you always set yourself targets. If we can just get that much money, or if we can just get that house, or we can just get that car, or we can just get that job, then everything will sort itself. It never happened, right? There's always a thing that you think, well, if we could get there, and then each time it's just further and further away. So, you know, don't worry about the details. Chris Fikey's quite right. Been winging it for 63 years, says Sean. Shit happens, baby. It does. Stuff goes wrong. It's just life. Don't sweat the small stuff except onions. Always sweat your onions. Cook your onions at the very least. So yeah. So it's, I don't know. It's one of those things. Is just you know, I don't know whether you notice these things as you get older. And I try to reassure younger people as often as I can that actually it's, you know, it is literally just life. It is just life. You never get to a situation where you feel like you've nailed it. You just don't. You just never get to that state of assurance. I think, I mean, being vaguely serious for a moment, I think that helps me with my writing, because I can remember being, you know, younger, like, you know, like a teenager or 18 or young 20s and all that sort of thing, and completely remember how I would have anxiety about being inferior and naive and inexperienced and not able to, you know, have the gravitas in meetings and stuff that other people had, yeah, that were older than me, who clearly had much more experience. And I remember thinking, oh, won't it be great when I'm like them and I'll be able to sort of, you know, stand up in front of people and people just listen, because I've got lots and lots of experience. You do build up that over time, but it's the whole kind of, I think it's called imposter syndrome nowadays, never really leaves you, in the sense that you know, actually, if somebody asks me a question about that, they're gonna completely evaporate my self-confidence because I don't know anything about that particular subject. So we all have that, and I mean, I've written 9 books now, and many of you on the stream have written many books as well. And sometimes I get in front of my keyboard and think, I can't do this anymore. I can't write. This is totally rubbish. I can't do this anymore. And I'm not a writer. I'm a fraud. I should refund everybody who's ever bought me a book. You know, stupid thoughts like that. You know, so you wrestle with those thoughts, you know, at any age, I think, and you know, they don't go away, I'm afraid. You have to sort of accommodate them and deal with them and kind of engage and acknowledge them, I suppose. You cruel person, shattering young people's hopes of having the perfect life. better they learn that soon, eh, Kenny Maglar? To be fair. Dear. So is tonight's topic on how we regard nostalgia in the future? Yes, nostalgia is not all it used to be, is what I can say to that. Have a big 39 GTs, but by the way, have any of you discovered Wordle yet? I've avoided Wordle deliberately because it's the sort of thing I would get sucked into, and I've got to avoid things like that because I've got too many things I get sucked into anyway. Yeah, don't get me started on imposter syndrome. It's a thing, actually, and I get it, and I think, you know, one of the things, you know, again, on a slightly serious note, one of the things I would really encourage you all to think hard about, actually, when you're in a situation where you know, the imposter syndrome kind of thing rears its ugly head, and it can rear its ugly head for all sorts of reasons, i.e. you're not as good at the thing that there's little voices in your head saying basically you shouldn't be here, you shouldn't be doing this because you're not qualified, you're not good enough. Or, you know, people like you shouldn't be doing this because you know, you're middle-aged, or you're black, or you're a woman, or you're a man, or you're whatever. Okay, you know, those voices can come into your head and tell you you're not allowed to do this, and you know, they're insidious and they're not true. They really aren't true. And the earlier in your life you can recognise that they're not true and manage them, because they'll keep coming back and whispering at you. The better you are. I mean, I wish I'd be able to give that advice to myself at a younger age. That imposter syndrome and those voices in your head, if you like, and they may not be voices, but it sounds a bit. I haven't got voices. Is there something wrong with me? All that sort of stuff. That anxiety that basically says, I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not good enough to go for that job. I'm not good enough to stand up in front of these people and present. I'm not good enough to write a book. I'm not good enough to hold this thing down. I'm not good enough to have that. That whatever it happens to be. They're not true. Okay. They're just don't give them any airspace inside your head is good advice. Okay, so because it'll be okay. I mean, it may be a bit scary, it may be a bit kind of like, whoa, what am I doing? But it'll be okay. It will be okay. Jan, oh my god, I was just walking around the house today saying to my wife, maybe it's just that my books really aren't that good. No, it is not, Jan. I read your book and it's excellent. Okay, the trick is, the problem with writing and the problem with books and the problem with that whole marketing business is basically most of it's luck. And most of it is luck. And any successful writer who tells you otherwise is lying. All right? It's as simple as that. All right? And it's the same with celebrity. Okay? It's the same with celebrity. I know a lot of people pine after being famous and in the limelight and having that celebrity lifestyle. And there is nothing that the celebrities have done in many, many cases to earn that. They've just been in the right place at the right time and got lucky. Okay? And luck can strike, or it doesn't. And it will strike for some authors and not for others who are much more deserving. It'll strike for some people who want to be celebrities, and for others it won't. And there may be some incredibly worthy people who never get noticed at all, and it's not down to the quality of their work, and it's not down to the quality of the things they produce. Luck is a vast, vast, vast amount of it. Okay, and that is just the way it is. And I would challenge any successful writer to claim otherwise. They've had a conversation, they've been in the right place at the right time to see something, somebody's noticed something, all of those things. The only thing you can do is improve your odds. Okay, the only thing you can do is improve your odds. So if you want to be a famous writer, you've got to just stick at it. You've got to stick at it. Okay, you've got to keep producing books, you've got to keep writing things, you've got to keep trying. Okay, the only time that you'll ever go backwards is if you stop. So if you want to be a bestseller author, you've just got to keep writing, and you might get lucky. Okay, that's the best advice I can give you. And having a lucky hat definitely helps. Glenn says, I don't think I've really ever not done things because I thought I could not do something, but the nagging voice is always still there. So it's insidious. It can wear you down. The odd thing about the media is if someone asks you, you can do something, you always say yes, and then you work out later how the hell you're going to do it. That's sometimes not a bad thing. And Glenn says, I've read 2 of your books, JR, and that evil voice in the back of your head is wrong, so keep it up. Exactly. Keep it up. Okay? It's important to have that encouragement. So then never give up, never surrender, etc. You've just got to keep working at it, and keep pushing and trying things. The only time you're never going to succeed is if you stop doing things. So it's not down to the quality of your work. You can always improve. We all know that. But it's hard. It's a hard thing to write a book, edit a book, publish a book, then promote a book and keep going in the face of quite a lot of basically an empty void sometimes when nobody's buying your book, or nobody seems to be interested in your book. You've just got to have faith in the fact that your work is quality and keep pushing it. It's difficult. It's hard, but believe in yourself, believe in the work that you do, and just keep going. Always keep going. Always keep on trying the new project, trying the new thing. The Foundation trilogy spent some years with a publisher who didn't publicise it and didn't pay Asimov royalties and only took off under new publisher. And that's it. Alan's got a very good point. Sometimes you just got to wait for the right connections and the stars to align and all those kind of more cliches. Sorry, those kind of things. But you've just got to keep trying new things. Being 5 minutes ahead of your audience is risky, but hell, it's exciting. Yeah. I try to avoid doing that. I must admit that's not a comfort zone for me at all. Even sometimes that's the thing as well. Brilliant. Anyway, well, that was a good waffle. Well done, everybody. You've hit the 30-minute mark already. Congratulations, everybody. You put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. 30 minutes of waffle just out of the chat, just like that. JL, I think says, I've read your stuff too. The voice that says they're not good is talking out of his arse. Well, there you go. So a bit of mutual encouragement on the stream. This is good, and that's positive. Okay, that's one of the reasons why I like this whole Twitch community, talking to people stuff, because it is important to encourage each other. Okay, and it might just be in writing, which is obviously the kind of the subject of the stream. I mean, you wouldn't know that from the waffle that goes on in here sometimes, but it is the subject of the stream. But just in general terms, okay, because life is tough, all right? Be under no illusions that life is tough. Life is hard work, okay? And I'm afraid, again, not wanting to disabuse all the youngsters, if there are any left, watching the stream, but life is tough, all right? It doesn't get any easier. You just get a different set of problems, all right? The things that are bothering you when you're in your teens are not the same things that are bothering you in your 50s, and vice versa. Okay, but they're still there, and you have different things to concern yourself about, they don't go away. They're just different problems. Okay, you're always dealing with this and that, and there's always a new thing that crops up. Think, why can't I just have a quiet life where everything was, the writer's idyll. I mean, I still kind of strive for this, and maybe one day I'll get a bit closer to it, but bit by bit. But the writer's idyll, when I get up, I've got a lovely cottage somewhere in the country. Okay, there's just birds singing outside the windows. There's no traffic noise. There's no bad news that comes through the internet. I get up and I say hello to my lovely wife, who's completely relaxed and entirely comfortable with life herself. And we have a lovely breakfast together over a hot, nice cup of coffee, and then say, well, I'll do a couple of hours writing, and you can go and do whatever you want. Absolutely, we'll meet for lunch, shall we? Yeah, let's do that. Let's meet for lunch. I get a couple of hours of writing in. Meet for lunch. Now, what should we do this afternoon? Why should we go for a stroll around the garden? Yeah. It's a beautiful day. We'll just go for a stroll around and go. And then maybe in the afternoon we'll have a little snooze, because it's the sort of time there. There's no big deal. I'm just out. And what should we have for dinner? I don't know. There's that little Italian place that's just opened in the village next door. Should we go there? Yeah, let's go to the little Italian place. We ring up, book a table. Of course, there's always a space. So we go down, and then we finish up, and I might just write a couple of emails to some adoring fans, and then that was obviously bedtime. So I'll go back to the next day we'll start. Yeah, that's kind of my ideal life, right? And it's never happened. So, dear. Rob's 2610. Any words of advice for a non-author, a fuel depot manager having severe confidence? I mean, the only thing I can say is keep looking out for alternatives in life, because there are some. But it's so don't put yourself into a situation where you feel that you're failing at whatever you do. You're not failing. Sometimes life is a bitch, right? Sometimes life really is a bitch. I mean, my wife and I have been through situations where we've been, we've had lots and lots of bills mounting up, and we've both been made unemployed. We've had some. Not life and death situations, but certainly situations where we've been on the breadline, and life has been really, really hard. And you're just wondering, how the hell are we going to pay for anything next month? Situations like that. And the only thing that I've figured out is that as long as you keep your eyes open, and you're willing to try things, and you're willing to push things, and you're willing to get out there and try stuff, there's always a solution. There's always a way around it somehow. You do have to use your imagination. Just don't let despair or anxiety creep up and overwhelm you, because that whole thing kills your ability to innovate. and it's very important to still be able to think, okay, well, there must be a way out of it. Where is it? And concentrate on that. So just don't let it overwhelm you. Find some people who are nearby if you can, who you can speak to in real, in the real world, and just talk. Find a pub. Very important things like that. So all that sort of stuff. Just communicate with people. It is keeping the communication going, because whilst people may not have the answers for you, the fact that you're around other people who get that life is tough and life is hard, and sometimes it feels that you're just like wading through treacle for weeks and months and maybe even years on end. There is something to be gained by the camaraderie of other people who are suffering at the same time. Okay, that just, and you may bounce ideas off each, and even if you don't, the company is important, okay, because it keeps your mental state up. All right, it keeps your mental state up, and that's really important, because you can't let it beat you down. You've got to work through it. You really have got to work through it. So it's toughy. Dobbo is my go-to mate. So if you've got people who are naturally positive, try and spend some time with them. An old girlfriend used to say it's a hard life and then you die. Well, it kind of is, though, isn't it? I mean, let's not go into the whole existential thing, because that is but it is a tough life. Life is hard. I mean, we bounce in our household. We bounce between, a crisis that concerns me, or a crisis that concerns my wife, or a crisis that concerns one of our sons, or something else breaks down, or you think, oh my God, can't we just have a week where everything goes smoothly? But that is life. Okay, if you take all that away, actually, it would get very boring. And whilst we curse, some of the things that go wrong in our lives, it does sometimes provide us with avenues to fix things. I mean, I had a friend of mine whose car kind of just went bang, and it stranded her, and we went out and rescued her and pulled her back, and then we were talking late into the night about things, and one thing led to another, and I eventually found a way to kind of fix her car and get it going again, various other bits and pieces, because we suddenly had a bit of a brainstorm about it, and suddenly had a bit of a revelation about how we might be able to fix it, and we did. And the next day it's like, actually that was, if that hadn't happened, we all got something out of it. So sometimes things can work. It's not saying it happens all the time, but there are positive things to look out for. But be under no illusions that life is tough, because it is. It's hard. Just keep striving on, because you've got to believe there's a better thing ahead of you. I always do. I am an eternal optimist. I always believe things are going to get better. So and maybe one day will. Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, says John. Yeah, indeed. Do you have to check on the flying pigs, Drew? I do, alas. Yes, they are down at the bottom of the garden. I'll be honest, Drew, all my life was taken away in the last year. Wow, okay, mind wipe. Sorry to hear that. Dealing with it, but I got people online to bolster me, and they keep me going. So the importance, and that's another thing that the importance of online communities. I mean, in some ways they're not as good as in real life communities, but in real life communities are hard to organise, particularly if you can't get to them with things like COVID and all that kind of stuff, right? It's been a lifeline for me as well, having people I can chat to about stuff that I'm interested in, space games and cliches and nostalgia, and it's important, right? And it's important to have chats and interact with people, and know there's people out there who will be thinking about you. That just the fact that you can mention something in an online space and have people kind of I've been there, I did this, I did that. But sometimes that's hard in real life, because people are just literally too far away. I mean, we have the advantage on the internet that half of you are, all of you could be in different countries and all over the world, and which you are, okay. But we're a community of people who have a like-minded interest. So there we go. And sometimes it is easier to share feelings online because you've got that slight cloak of anonymity that kind of helps. Hopefully we still have good chats if we're all in the pub somewhere. But that's the way. But don't let the voices, okay, those the thoughts you have, particularly in sometimes at night. Sometimes the night time is the worst. The anxiety, this is going to be a disaster. How the hell are we going to get through the next month? This thing that's affecting my son, my daughter, my wife, my friend, whatever it happens to be. I can't see a way out of it. I can't see how this is possibly ever going to improve. Those always seem to be worse at night. So try and keep a small rational part of your brain focused on this will pass. There'll be a solution. There'll be a way to improve this, because there will be. It's just it's just hard to see it sometimes, but express those thoughts and fears to other people, because it will help. It will help. Sometimes it's easy to share deep things online. Yes, it is, Glenn. You're quite right. And the advantage of online communities is you can remain anonymous and still discuss issues like anxiety. And I think that's important. And it's and that's one thing I think us older folks can help with, in the sense of life experience, is just to reassure you that everything you're experiencing is totally normal. Okay, to feel anxious about things, to be concerned where things are going, to be concerned, is there any point in actually doing any of this, because maybe we'll be blown up in 5 years' time. All of those sort of things, from low level, big scale anxieties to actual crisis in a particular moment. You do go through those things. That is life. Okay, that is life. You will have a crisis. I hope you don't, but the chances are you will. And that is stuff that happens to us. And seek out other people to help you through it, because that's what communities are for. So there we go. We're a group of like-minded individuals across the globe listening to the voices that creep in at night. I swear this isn't Nicole. We'll do the magic handshake in a moment. My white pick, I remember when you badgered my car before Fantasticon. Yes, that's right. I was on my way, wasn't I, to Fantasticon, and then then I wasn't. All of us were worried for you during that news, but you came through and we were all worried. Oh, that's very kind of you, Mima. Thank you very much for that. I was more annoyed because I wanted to get there, and an idiot driver on the motorway decided no, he wasn't. It wasn't going to allow me to think. But it was one of those moments where I thought, that could have been it, actually. Do enjoy the time that you do have, even if it seems crap, because there is enjoyment to be found. The company of friends, a nice meal, a glass of wine, whatever it happens to be that you use to pass the day. That is life. That bit is life, I'm afraid. It may not be good or it may not be bad, but it is life. So there we are. We are right. The only advice I can offer for the young is don't take life too serious. Forgive the Esther. Forgive the existentialism, but is there a topic? Right. Well, let's move to the topic. Okay. Let's try this, because it's now like 42 minutes. We haven't got anywhere close to the topic. Well, we have actually, oddly enough, as is quite often the case with you guys, is that the topic is it's like I've sent you some strange brainwaves, in the sense that the topic is sometimes related to how the waffles go, which is quite weird. But the topic tonight actually applies both to science fiction and fantasy, and there's one I'm wrestling with in my current Kelly Baglass, now talking about chocolate bars with DJ Squibby. Thanks, guys. Topics are nice though, aren't they? It is related. Okay, so it's one I'm struggling with. Not struggling with, but I'm kind of thinking about in my current novel, because and I like to play this off because it's a good writing subject. Okay, it's a good writing subject. Yeah, lion bars. I prefer lion bars, actually. Paddy says hazelnut in every bite. See, and they say advertising doesn't work, right? It does, because we all remember the catchphrases from a Mars bar a day helps you work, rest, and play, and all that sort of stuff. Opal fruits made to make your mouth water. Double deckers, munchies. All good stuff. So yes, all right, stop it. yeah, so the topic is actually what I was thinking today is, and I'm figuring that it's my story, and it's a good writing topic because I'm going to use the word topic and not respond to the chat, remember, because it applies in all sorts of genres. It's not unique to science fiction or fantasy, right? It apply anywhere, and that's the topic of richness and poorness. Okay, richness and poorness. And we can talk about this in the context of fantasy and science fiction a little bit, because to introduce it into the science fiction concept, you have science fiction where things are utopian, right? Star Trek sort of springs to mind in its purest, original sense. It's less so now. Where, well, we, in a society where Captain Picard, sorry. Patrick Stewart's the real guy. Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard is able to say, well, we don't have money anymore in the 24th century. We just work to better ourselves. So there is no money. Okay, there's no money. So there aren't any rich or poor people, therefore, in that sense, at least on the civilized planets, because there's no money. Okay, so I don't quite know how the Star Trek universe therefore works, but if you want to do something, it seems to only be based on merit. I.e., if you're good at it, then you'll proceed. Because there's still ranks in Starfleet. There's captain and admiral and first officer and all those kind of things. There is that aspect of it, and then obviously, Mindwipe's already mentioned it for things like Deep Space Nine. Suddenly, there is gold pressed latinum. There is a currency. Kind of, which is obviously kind of used for slightly dodgy dealing around the edges. So I don't quite know how that all fits together in Star Trek, but the idea that there are rich people and poor people in a society is a concept that you can play with in writing quite a lot. Now, in my current novel that I'm working on, and I'm using this because I rather enjoy putting privilege and money and power, and counterpointing it with lack of the same. Okay, so you might have a character who is rich and privileged and sees the universe as their plaything, and you might have by contrast, you might have somebody at the other end of the scale who is doesn't have power and just sees people abusing power around them or enforcing things on them, and doesn't realise that they can be anything more than they are because of the situation they're in. And that gives you a lot of stuff to develop characters with. It's quite fun. So are there homeless people in Star Trek who are just this is, I don't know, Glenn. I'm not quite sure. I haven't really sat down and given this a lot of thought. So if in Star Trek, if there isn't money, and people are kind of allowed to do what they want to do, because you kind of get that impression, certainly in the utopian aspects of Star Trek, that people, I'm just going to be a painter, or I'm just going to be a writer, or I'm just going to learn the bassoon or something, all that sort of stuff, and I'm just studying that. What are you today? I'm a bassoon player. Oh, okay, excellent. Where did you get the bassoon from? Well, I just replicated it. There seems to be no materiality problem. Everybody seems to have a nice apartment in San Francisco as well. Have you noticed that? The number of people who must live in San Francisco in the 24th century. So I don't know how that works. I mean, how do you deal with property in a world where no money? I mean, Picard has got this lovely orchard place, lovely sort of French chateau, hasn't he? Somewhere in, I presume, sort of southern France somewhere. He's got a lovely sprawling mansion and a huge vineyards and all that sort of stuff. And it seems to be a family home. So that implies property, that implies ownership. So how does that work without money? I don't know. Oh, is it Le Bar? I don't know where that is actually. Presumably it's a real place. I mean, there are still some limits, like not everybody can have a Galaxy-class Star Trek. And that's another thing with Star Trek I don't understand, is how does the economy work? Because, I mean, building something like a starship is not going to be cheap, even if there isn't any money. Because, I mean, there's raw materials, so you've got to transport those raw materials. You've got to pay for the energy to move them around and transform them and create them. How do you motivate a workforce to build a starship? I don't know. So I don't quite understand how it works. Because I mean, they're not slaves, are they? Not massive whips, right? You will build the starship this week. One of the reasons why work works, if you like, is we do work in exchange for money, and the reason we do it in exchange for money is because we don't actually want to do. We don't actually want to do it, do we? Most of the time, if we're honest, the work that we do, we wouldn't do it if we weren't getting paid to do it. Because it's either unpleasant, or it's boring, or it's physically demanding, or possibly a combination of those things. That's why we get paid money, so we can spend our money on things that we do want. Some things which are essential, and some which are our choice of disposable income. So I don't quite know how Star Trek is supposed to work, and it's unusual. It was a family home. His brother and nephew died, and nobody was essentially left to run it. So, but it's got to have. It still has value. A place that big, surely. I mean, but if there's no money, you can't sell it, can you? You could presumably give it away, but so I don't quite understand how that's supposed to work. And in most Star Trek, in most science fiction universes, you have. I mean, the ubiquitous credits comes up a lot, doesn't it? In many sci-fi shows and computer games, actually, because it's just the default science fiction unit of currency, isn't it? Oh well, it's 6,000 credits to buy a thing. I don't know what does Star Wars use, because it. I don't know if they have. Do they use credits in Star Wars? I can't remember now. Or is it just. They don't have. Because I remember Luke talking about his speeder. Ever since the XP-38 came out, they're just not in demand. He's got enough money to get to Ultimate. What's the currency they use there? We can pay you 3,000 now, and another 3,000 when we get. Is there a currency mentioned? I can't remember. And Han tosses a coin, and some coins he chucks onto the bar, so saying sorry about the mist. Sorry about the mist. And so there's multiple currencies. Okay, but they're recognisable currencies, which kind of implies some sort of galactic exchange, doesn't there? And credits were by the arcade craze, of course. You got a credit, didn't you, for putting in your 10p or your quarter, whatever it happens to be. And Han owes money to Jabba, so there's a debt. There's concept of debt and repayment, and there's a bounty, and presumably there's interest, and all those sort of things, which we would recognise in a capitalist sort of economy today. In many ways, not much has changed in that sort of sense. You do things for money, or you do things for materials. There we go. The cost. I couldn't remember what it was. Republic credits don't work here. That's right. Yeah. So Republic. So there are different currencies. Okay, depending on where you are. And, that's a bit like the environment we have here. We don't want to give your American dollars here. So Republic Ataris were the name for the Republic credits in Star Wars. Okay, and Star Trek Voyager used replicator rations as currency, which is food coupons essentially, isn't it? So those sort of things are good. So there are sort of economies now. That the moment you've got an economy, you've got the opportunity to be, you've got the the rich and the poor. Okay, now it's interesting to look at our own societies today and go, okay, so rich people and poor people, and it's a very nebulous thing to define rich and poor, because if I put a line in the sand in the UK, an awful lot of people who are at the bottom end of the income scale in the UK would be rich compared to people at the high end of the income scale in less fortunate countries in the world. Okay, so those are relative scales, which sometimes look a bit strange depending on where you're looking at them from. Now that's not to say that people at the bottom end of the UK aren't suffering, because clearly they are, and it's getting worse. I mean, that's a problem that a lot of Western societies are facing at the moment. There are a lot of poor people who are below the average, I suppose, in terms of that locale, that country, or that geography, all those kind of things. So now, what's very, very clear from our society is there is ostensibly plenty of money to go around. Okay, plenty of money to go around. And what we have is a distribution of wealth problem across all those extremes. The old thing about if you've got money, it's easy to make money. Well, it is, because if you've got £1 million in the bank, right, and you can invest that at 5%, and you only spend £20,000 a year, you will never ever run out of money. Okay, because you're spending less than you're earning in interest from your £1 million that you've saved. You're doing no work to gain that £20,000. Okay, so at a certain point, because of things like compound interest and things like that do work in economies, then you can't be poor unless you do something really, really stupid, because you always have enough money to replenish the money that you've spent. Now, if you're poor and you don't have £1 million, which clearly most of us don't, okay, then you can't. Any money that you make, you're having to use immediately. You can't build up that savings buffer because you don't have the disposable income to do it. So you're stuck in a poor place where you have to work to continue, etc., etc., etc. Genuine story, in army deployments, we would end up using actual issued rations as a form of currency in places that we can't buy food. Can confirm a ration pack cherries turnover is at least 2 ration meals, and don't let anyone shortchange you. So unofficial currencies will spring up as well. Drew's bordering on Marxism versus capitalism. Yeah, I know. But these are the sort of things. Okay, is that the interesting thing here is that our society, as it stands, there is capable of distributing wealth more evenly, but we don't, for all sorts of reasons. Okay, now if you push that into the future, Star Trek. I know Star Wars is a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, but it's kind of futuristic, right? Star Trek or Battlestar Galactica or any of those other things, okay? They're in the future, so they've got more technology, but they don't seem to have advanced economic theory at all in most of these sci-fi shows. And then fantasy shows are even worse, okay? So sometimes, how do lots of people in fantasy realms actually earn a living, These are things that we've discussed before. Most people in fantasy novels and things seem to be borderline paupers almost all the time. It's a dreary, drudgy, horrible life until suddenly you discover that you're the anointed one and you've got magic powers or something, and then you're lifted out of your poverty. Or the novel is very much that there's mostly paupers and there's a few kind of high lords of the realm, and that sort of stuff. And they've got that sort of feudal system going on in a lot of fantasy novels. The gap between rich and poor is huge in those environments, where maybe magic could be used to level out the playing field a little bit. The economic theory, if you like, in sci-fi novels and stuff is very often so similar to what we actually have on the Earth, just bigger. And Paddy McGinty, you're quite right. A lot of sci-fi have solved with slavery, and there's the classic. And going to Elite for a moment, for example, you've got the Federation, which is kind of the USA in space, kind of. And then you've got the Empire, which is kind of like the Roman Empire in Spain, where slavery is a thing. Okay, now there's a different model going on there to what we're used to, in the sense that slavery is bad, right? Slavery is bad, but when you look at how it works in those, it's a fictional society, of course. Get past the word slave for a moment. And look at what's actually going on here. Is what basically is happening is you're signing up to work off effectively a debt or something like that for an agreed period of time. But during that period of time, you will be housed and clothed and fed, etc., 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 and kept in good conditions. Okay, guaranteed. You have to, because that's the honour of the society. So you're effectively paying off a debt in secure circumstances. That's what slavery means in that fictional context. Now, I'm not endorsing slavery, okay, but just bear with me. So in some fictional contexts, slavery, in that sense, is actually a safer environment for the individual caught in that situation than the uncertainty that would face somebody in debt in a futuristic capitalist society, where if you get it wrong and fail to pay your bills, you fall on hard time and there's no safety net. So, what you can have from a writing perspective is which system is actually better? Which system is better for the individual? Okay, in those sort of things. Slavery is bondage. So is debt. Okay. You can. For example, I've been paying a mortgage, for example. And those of you will know this. I've been paying a mortgage for nearly 25 years. We're getting to the end of it now, but we've been paying a mortgage, and that requires me to bring in a certain amount of money every month. Or if I don't do that, some people will come and evict me from my house. Okay, that's the that's the ultimate sanction, right? If I don't pay my mortgage, and then my house will be repossessed, and I'll be kicked out on the street. And I don't know what happens in that situation because I've fortunately never been there. But that is the risk that you run, that if things don't go right. Okay, so am I a slave to the bank? Is that too extreme? Because I can't get out of it. I am obliged. I have to do it. That's one of the agreements. Your home can be repossessed. It says very clearly on my mortgage statement, my mortgage paperwork, your home can be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on this mortgage. And even the word mortgage means deathlock, right? That's what it actually means. So a free worker who has no security and is only paid daily is in a bad situation. So I'm a freelancer, so I have. I invoice on a monthly basis. That's it. I have no job security at all outside of a month. My income can disappear in a month's time, and that'd be it. And hopefully, I can get it back somewhere else. But that's the world I live in. Now, some jobs are even less than that. There's a week or a day, or the best I've ever had actually is 3 months' notice for one job. Now that's going to vary a little bit depending on which country you're in and what laws they have. But Mr. Barclay sends his regards. Yeah, I am with Barclays actually. How do you know that? That's quite funny. So there, we quite rightly go slavery is abhorrent, right? We quite rightly look at that. In terms of slavery when it's kind of forced labour for no wages, no security, atrocious conditions. Completely get that. But the slavery that's mentioned in Elite's empire isn't the same thing. It's the same word. In some ways, maybe that's unfortunate. But basically what it is indentured servitude is probably the best way to describe it, where you say, I will agree in exchange for cancelling all of my debts and the misdemeanors of my family, whatever happens to be the problem, I will work for you for 5 years. Okay. The flip side of that deal is, however, that you will house me, you will clothe me, you will feed me during that period of time, but I have no other rights outside of that. Now, is that bad, or is that just different? Okay, I don't know. So these are the sort of things that you can use in novels. It's fun to look at different ways of society managing the whole rich versus poor thing, and those sort of things. A kind of unpaid internship, yeah. Some people stand at the factory gates hoping for a job just for that day. That was in the UK not that long ago. It's a very common thing. Hoping they pay 30 days, but most likely 90. Sometimes we think of science fiction things in the future like things will get better, but there's an awful lot of dystopian science fiction where obviously things don't, and human life becomes cheap, because why would I buy an expensive machine to do this job when I've got loads of excess of people to do the job for me, all those sort of things. Okay, so if there's a situation where life is cheap because it's plentiful, and therefore to the big bosses, or whoever's in charge of the situation, life is kind of like, well, we've got loads of servants and slaves. They're cheap. We can get more of them. They don't really matter. Just chuck a few of them in there, and we'll see how it goes. So there's that. Quickly they get that concept of people in power having power, and the little people not being, having no say, having no rights, all of those sort of things. And there is a temptation to hopefully think that being poor will get abolished somehow in the future, but I don't think it will. Even if we become hugely technically advanced and are able to travel between the stars, I still think we're going to have haves and have-nots, if you like, in those kind of societies, because people will abuse power. They just do. You're seeing that in the Western world a lot at the moment. Is the gap between the rich and poor is increasing all the time, that I still think would be true in science fiction futuristic circles as well. I don't know. I mean, you obviously disagree with me if you think so, but John Locke, philosopher, not lost character, said that we're all slaves if we pay tax, as we work a percentage of our time for no pay. Well, that it is true. We're working. It's going to vary again in countries. I was trying to work out how much of my income over my lifetime has been paid not for my benefit, i.e. tax. Okay. And it's some tax goes to things that I do want to have, so it's jolly convenient. In the UK at least, we've got a national health service, okay, so I don't really mind paying for that. I like the fact that the bin man turn up and empty the rubbish bins every week. That's useful, stops me having to do it. When there's a hole in the road, some guys come and they fix it. Usually not very well, but they do fix it. Things like that are useful services to have, and there is a level of there needs to be some police officers about and fire people about, and maybe a smattering of the army just to keep an eye on things outside the borders. I get that. Okay, we do pay our taxes for a lot of worthwhile things. Okay, I'm getting some benefit out of that as a taxpayer, but there's probably quite a few things that I don't want my taxes to go to, and I don't get any choice about that. You can also look at the level of tax and ask yourself, is that the correct amount of tax that I should be paying for the services that I've received, right? Because I'm not always convinced. A totally egalitarian society is almost impossible. Mine might be quite right. The Expanse shows that easily on corruption and exploitation, because you can exploit people. If they don't know better, sometimes you can exploit people, and I think this is the stuff that I play with a little bit, because I kind of have in my current work, because I am playing around with some very wide social divides, because I'm playing with planets where the society is extremely sophisticated and very highfalutin at one end, but there's an underclass that allows that to exist. They have servants and they have people doing dangerous jobs, because the rich people don't want to do the dangerous jobs. All that sort of stuff. So it's and then you obviously have the characters. Then you can write from the different perspectives. And so if you're writing from the perspective of a rich character, and you say, well, money is the tool to get things done that I think are important. So I have characters who basically says, that planet over there, we will conquer that. We will eventually conquer that. And that's important for us to take control of that thing, because we deserve it, because we're rich, we're powerful, we have influence, and our vision for the glory of the whatever it happens to be is that particular star system becomes part of our conglomerate. Okay, well, a few people will die, but they were going to die anyway. And we'll take over that planet. Yes, there'll be a fight and some spaceships will be destroyed. But I mean, spaceships only cost a few million credits, and we can replace all the people upon them, within a few weeks. So does it really matter? Because the ultimate goal is that we grab that star system and we control it, because we are born to control. We have, that is our purpose in this great universe, is to control, because we have the power. We have been given the power. We have inherited the power. That's what we do. Okay. And so it's quite fun to write from that perspective, okay, because these people are privileged. They have the ability to change the course of history. They have the tools and the wherewithal at their disposal, and they're entitled, and they think it's okay. And I can write from that perspective, which is interesting. Whereas, of course, you can then flip it on its head and write from the point of the oppressed person on the planet, okay, who's basically seeing this enormous battlefield coming, and they're powerless to prevent it. And their land, their homes is taken away from them. and they might be bitter, they might die, they might be killed in the process, but they're going to be affected by it. And what do they do as a result? What happens to them as an individual? What do they become? What do they do as a result? All those sort of things. Or you can write it from the purposes of somebody who's basically been exploited. Okay, I'm one of the guys on the spaceship. Out of the 20 ships that are going into this fight, 4 of them aren't coming back. I might be on one of the 4 that doesn't come back. That's my lot in life. I'm a grunt. I'm an expendable marine, or whatever it happens to be, fighting a fight for which I won't get the benefit. And you can write from all those different perspectives and try and place yourself into those roles. So those are good things as a writer, to be able to kind of pick out those kind of different aspects. So I don't know. Let me get back up to the chat. They fix your holes in the road. Sometimes they do. Yes, they do. So it seems like settlers willing to travel to another world will likely owe the company to pay their way. Well, that's exactly it. So you've got people who are, pushed out of their environment by whatever. Exactly like what we're experiencing today. Okay, with immigrants and migrants and stuff. Even if you're economic migrant, or the fact that your home planet or your home country, whatever it happens to be, is war torn because people who are much bigger and more powerful than you are having an argument over something you don't necessarily understand. You're just trying to get away with it and stay alive. That same thing can happen in science fiction very easily. Okay, we'll get you off this planet, but it's going to cost you. You're going to cost you. You're going to have to pay us 60,000 credits back. We'll get you off the planet. I haven't got 60,000 credits. How many kids have you got? All those sort of things. Okay, well, you're working for us for 3 years, and we'll get you off the planet. And you're desperate. So what do? All those sort of things, right? You can play around with those kind of things as a writer, and they can be inspired by kind of real events. That's very true. There are plenty of sci-fi space operas that don't even approach the topic at all. But I think they're real things. Currencies and wealth inequality in science fiction and fantasy, something they're useful things to have, because they can give your characters a bit more kind of motivation. Why are they like this? Well, they're poor. Okay, so they're desperate, or they're rich and they feel privileged and they have the power to do things and there's nothing to stop them. So why wouldn't they? Etc. 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 It reflects in your writing, Drew. I like it. Thank you very much, Moin. It might be time for a reread of The Dispossessed if you're looking at alternative social structures. Yeah, so that's an interesting one as well. And I think it's human nature to be greedy or selfish, says Glenn. It's a hard habit to break. And that's a difficult one, isn't it? Because where do you draw the line in selfish behaviour? Because if I'm trying to be totally and utterly honest with myself, I'm probably quite selfish, okay? At the end of the day, I will tend to defend, and I think most people would tend to defend their own immediate family against many other concerns, even if that's not necessarily the best outcome for everybody involved. Because you kind of do, don't you? And at some point your own self-preservation will kick in as well. Is that selfish? Is the desire to have a certain thing selfish? Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Difficult one. None of us are perfect either. And it's difficult. In a situation where if we were, as individuals, thrust into a situation where we were suddenly extremely rich and powerful, how would we act? Given a bit of time to acclimatise to it. Or if we were stuck in a situation where we were completely powerless, and whatever we do have has been taken away from us, and we're kind of just left at the mercy of whatever the system is, what would all happen to us? Where would we be? Give those two extremes 2 years to run. What kind of person would we morph into? I think the answer to that would be surprising and horrific to many of us. So, Haunted Loaf, we may get to a point where food and shelter is freely available as air, but access to mega mansions and spaceships, which take many millions of man-hours to build, will be controlled. And that's interesting. Or some kind of currency-esque thing like social prestige. That's a good one. So that's quite good. A soldier at a middle pay grade needs 10 other soldiers at the same scale paying full tax just to pay for his salary. That's very true. Yeah. So salary is then taxed again. So tax is a curious thing. So. Physician says that reminds you should look into assembly theory, a theory of life based on the physical tendencies of the universe. Okay, that's quite cool as well. Martin Bree's Just Six Numbers. That's a good book. I enjoyed that one. So I don't know. I suppose we have moral selfishness and immoral selfishness. Yes, I suppose we do. So although I do know rich people who are particularly kind and altruistic, as well as poor people who are atrocious individuals, the whole rich, bad, poor, good is risks being a trope. That's very true, Cyril. So I think you can have good and bad in any situation. I mean, some people have basically said that money brings out the truer you sometimes. The more money you have, the closer we get to see what you're actually like, because you have the means to do it. So I don't know. That's interesting. My wife says, I've got an incoming call. Okay, take care, my friend. A few really good things, and you have also love reclamation and audio reading. 07, my friend, live long and play longer. Will do. Thank you very much. The Handmaid's Tale. Now that one is an excellent. So for those of you who haven't read The Handmaid's Tale, that's essential reading, because that's a very, very clever novel about a not very far away dystopian future, actually, but it does have power and servitude in it in a very, very big way. People with, social classes and stuff, very, very stratified social classes, very interesting as well. So you do see it in history too, like nobles who mercilessly exploit their subjects, but on the other hand, there are nobles with a very high sense of noblesse oblige, and that's very true. So there's no guarantee that rich people will be bad and poor people will therefore be these little paragons of virtue because they haven't got anything. Sometimes those things can be romanticized to the point where they're not realistic. So those sort of things are important. But I think from a writing perspective, there's so much mileage in adding a little bit of financial structure to the universe that you're writing in. So I did it with, most noticeably, I think, with my elite novel. I basically, because we had that pre-prepared background of law regarding the Federation and the Empire, it was an easy thing to go, okay, well let's just stick somebody in there with privilege and rank and position, who's used to giving orders and having people obey them without question. It's interesting what that sort of society does to people, particularly if they're born into it. Because if you're born into an environment where, as a young child, you can order people about and stuff happens, then as you become an adult, that's just how things are. Okay, you're not going to question that it's right or wrong, because it is. Okay. An awful lot of the things that we consider to be normal are things that are based in our childhood quite often, and it takes a real effort of will to undo that as an adult sometimes, and go, actually, what I picked up as a child actually wasn't correct, and that can be that can really crack your mental image of how things are sometimes, those kind of things. And so I thought, in the case of that one, let's have a character who is privileged, who has rank, who has position, who's used to bossing people around, and is therefore arrogant and haughty and not very nice. Because that's fun. That's a fun character to play with. And then at the other end of the scale, let's have somebody who's trying to scrape enough money to keep a ramshackle spaceship in one piece. And guess what? The two of them meet, and stuff happens. And the interaction between those two worldviews. Well, slavery is a good thing. What do you mean slavery is a good thing? Slavery is an appalling thing. Clash of worldviews and clash of viewpoints, all that sort of stuff is a good, healthy thing for narrative flow and character interaction and conflict, because conflict is a big deal in all books. Nurture or nature, and I suppose for rich people, greed is the master, whereas for poor people, necessity is the master. Money is the means for both. You're trying. When I see, bad and good behaviour at all levels, I suppose I'm lucky in the sense that I've interacted with some very powerful and rich people in my time. I am neither, by the way. But likewise, I've also, I've been in a few places where there's been astonishing poverty, and seen what that does to people and how they cope with it. And the contrast between those environments is extreme, absolutely is extreme, and it's been fuel for my writing. I mean, the most obvious example I can remember is when I was 18. My dad was working in Berlin, well, West Berlin as it was back then, and for one reason or another, I was out there. I think on a kind of sort of exchange visit with a with West German students. I was out in West Berlin as an exchange student, and my dad was out there too doing some work. And for one particular reason, he had to go into East Berlin, which then, of course, was the communist side. It was under control of the USSR at the time, and we had to go through Checkpoint Charlie to go to East Berlin. And I had no real preconceived ideas of what I was going to experience when I went into East Berlin from West Berlin. But I can remember no more shocking contrast between cultures in my entire life than I've ever experienced in what was probably about 2 hours. I remember, West Berlin was just like, any other Western city, bright LED, not LED, but, bright neon lights, lots of shops, hotels, cars, traffic, noise, big TV sets, everything you'd expect in a Western city, okay? And we went through Checkpoint Charlie, and I remember getting through the US side, as it was then, of the checkpoint, which was fairly sensible, fairly normal, kind of passport control-y type thing. And then I, stepped into the USSR controlled side, and it was the first time anybody had pointed a gun at me. And as an 18-year-old, that was a bit of a shock. Okay, two big soldiers pointing at you with, well, I assume were AK-47s. I don't know my guns, but big semi-automatic rifles, basically, and gesturing of you to come forward and stand over here, and taking your passport, looking at it, checking out your left eyebrow, then looking at your right eyebrow, then looking at, basically checking out your facial thing. No English spoken, of course. Very, very, very oppressive. And you sort of realised, I remember thinking at the point, if they take me away here because they found something they're not happy with, there's nothing I can do. I'm totally and utterly powerless to resist because they might just shoot me. Nothing happened, but I was escorted through and I met my dad on the other side, and I was visibly shaken by this point. He was used to it. He kind of just said, you will get used to it. That's just how it is. And we walked into East Berlin, and it was like walking back in time. It literally was. There were no cars on the roads apart from a few of them were parked, a handful of cars. The shops were empty. There was nothing in the shelves. There were no flowers. There was no. Everything was tidy. There was no litter in the streets, but there was no paraphernalia of Western civilization. There were no dustbins. There were no adverts. There were no. I just remember the overall impression I got. It was just grey. There was no variation. There was no colour. There was no nothing. And the few people we saw shuffled past us without making eye contact. And I just get this overwhelming impression of greyness from the visit I made there. In sharp contrast to Western, and it was probably the contrast that I picked up on most between the two environments. And maybe coloured a little bit by having somebody point a gun at me, so it was shockingly different to anything I'd experienced before, and it stayed with me till now. It's a fundamental memory I had, and it was only a few years later that the Berlin Wall actually came down and the whole reunification thing happened. But at the time, the difference between, and you walked across, Checkpoint Charlie was effectively kind of a road bridge, and there was a no man's land place in between the two, which was kind of effectively off limits to both sides, and with heavy duty barbed wire fencing and all that sort of stuff, and machine gun turrets. There were machine gun turrets there that were manned, and there were machine guns in them. And only a few days before, somebody had tried to escape from East Berlin to West Berlin and been shot in no man's land, literally a few hundred feet away from where I was going through. And it was just one of those things that's sort of stuck with me. So that oppression, that tension between different social ways, political ways of organising society, and therefore the effect that has on the people who live within those regimes, has always stuck with me. Sounds like Drew is describing Peterborough. Some places were mined as well. You're quite right, Chris. They were. Yeah, they were very dangerous indeed. I've been to former East Germany, and those very angular grey concrete buildings, they really stand out amongst more. So I mean, I haven't been back to Berlin ever since, but the wall itself, from a distance, looked very unimpressive. I think that's it. That's the wall, and because it was only about 12 feet high. You think, well, that's not much of a wall, and then you realise that you can't climb it. Because it's smooth concrete, and it had this sort of bulge over the top, which was designed to stop you being able to get your arms over it. It was exactly the right diameter to basically, so you couldn't get a grip on it. So it was virtually impossible to climb. And of course, if you did climb it, you had like 200 meters of mined and barbed wired and machine gun patrol no man's land to get across, which was impossible. But it was the experience. I think having somebody point a gun at you. It's always, especially when you know it's loaded and it's dangerous, is always a bit of a moment, and things like that have always stuck with me. And I think they say write what you know, which is again another horrible cliche, and I don't think it's always true, but I have used the sense of fear I experienced and the sense of intimidation and the sense of powerlessness in things like that in real life, in my writing of my characters. Basically say I'm trying to get across to this person that they feel powerless, they don't feel in control, the system is in charge at this point, all those sorts of things, and so having been in some of those sort of things, very, very difficult. I mean, and those of you who, you don't have to go all that far for dangerous situations. I mean, any of you who've been in in a slightly dodgy part of town at a late time of night will know exactly the sort of fear that you can experience when people have a little bit too much alcohol and a bit too much aggro, and a bit of testosterone starts flying around, or somebody takes exception to the way somebody else looked at something, and a fight start in the bars and all those sort of things. Those things happen all the time, and they're intimidating as well. Cyril says we have a piece of the wall outside of our workplace gifted by the German army. It's really I've got a small chunk of it actually. My dad saved for me. So all of those sort of things are formative experiences. But I think the rich and the poor thing. I don't think the utopian society is possible all the time. Humanity is humanity. I don't think we're very good at creating that. There will always be a subset of people who try and exploit the situation for their advantage. And so I quite like, and going back to space games, I quite like what I see in Star Citizen, where you've got some utopian societies and everything's like shiny and white and polished and lovely. And then you go to some of the dodgy space stations in orbit around some of the planets, and it's all kind of like everything's sort of sticky and there's blood on the floor, and it's like, don't go around that corner because there's this guy, all that sort of stuff is good science fiction mix. So if you've got people who are used to living in a dystopian environment and you place them suddenly into a really swishy, lovely environment, that transition is fun. The whole. It's a bit of a trope and a bit of a cliche, but the whole kind of poor person lifted out of poverty and plonked into a rich environment. It's basically what's that thing? Eliza Doolittle. What's that one? The poor girl who's picked up and tried to be turned into a lady. My Fair Lady, there we go. Eliza Doolittle, My Fair Lady, that sort of stuff. And Pygmalion, Trading Places, all of those stories, okay, they play on that idea that what happens if we take somebody from one place and put them into the other place, or vice versa. So those sort of shows are good, fun stories because A, there's a bit of humour sometimes, and B, there's a poignant, okay, well, if it was me, what would happen? New Babbage versus Grim Hex, exactly, Chili. That sort of stuff in Star Citizen is really, really good. I love that contrast because it's good narrative. The one thing that Star Citizen really has over Elite, actually, at the moment in those situations, is those environments, because those environments tell stories just by looking at the screen. You could look at New Babbage and go, wow, this is like Star Trek. It's all shiny and polished, and there's not even a fingerprint. And you go to Grim Hex and it's like there's blood on the walls and you can smell the fumes and everything's busted and things are hanging down, they're all broken. That's that's telling you a story without you having to say a word. It's really, really good. The Prince, the Prince and the Porpoise. Here's the porpoise. Hasn't arrived yet, sir. That's one of my favourite bits of Blackadder. The Prince and the Pauper. And the porpoise hasn't arrived yet. People who win the lotto and blow their huge winnings in just a few years. That's a bit of a trope as well, isn't it? But it does happen. I know several people who, at many stages in their lives, have been way, way, way more financially better off than I am, and probably will ever be, but have lost it all. Genuinely have lost it all because they've just done stupid things, or they've just spent it on who knows what. Sometimes, sometimes they have, they've had fast cars and glorious holidays and big houses, but sometimes they haven't. And you kind of look at them thinking, where did your money go? What did you spend it on? Because they don't have anything to show for it. Some people are just not very good at looking after money, or don't understand compound interest and things like that, or saving or anything along those lines. So some people are not good at managing it, or some people just go a little bit insane when they get too much money, all those kind of things. Whereas some people will look after it. I quite like also the idea of the 5 wives. Yeah, that's a good point. Yes. If Drew had lots of money, he would still buy old cars because you see, I would. You're absolutely right. I don't like spending too much money on material things. I see the benefit in investing in a house because it's a place to do other stuff in, and it keeps out the cold. The older I get, I quite like that. But I've never spent much. Although I go on about my cars quite a lot. My entire set of cars has only cost me relatively few thousands of pounds. I spend way less on my cars than most people do, because most people in the UK, particularly nowadays, will take a car out on hired purchase or a PCP, I think they're called, personal contract plan, which means they're spending £200-300 a month servicing a debt to have a new car. I don't spend anywhere near £300 a month on my cars, not even close. So who's spending more money on a car? I've got a pair of old, certainly by any modern standards, very old cars, but I like them and they're fun when they work, which one of them isn't at the moment, which is causing me some angst. But I don't spend a great deal of money. I like value for money. A lot of people, when I was doing Elite at the end of last year, say, get yourself a new graphics card, because how could you possibly do a new graphics? And I said, well, I think this graphics card should be up to the job because it said so on the screen. I'm not getting a new graphics card when I was told this one was adequate, and it's adequate for all these other things I do. So why should this game be any different? So I won't spend money that I don't feel I need to spend. I could go out and buy a new graphics card today. I'm in a situation where I've got enough money to do that. I wouldn't do it on principle because it's not a necessary thing. So all those sort of things, and a lot of it is I don't like modern things. I particularly don't like modern cars, as you know. And I've got no particular desire to be super rich, because I think being rich comes with all sorts of other problems, right? I'd like enough money that I didn't really have to worry about it anymore. That's sort of, I suppose, my ideal goal is that I don't need to be going on. I don't want a Ferrari. I don't want a holiday to, I don't know, the Bahamas every 5 minutes. I don't want a yacht. I don't want a villa. I don't even want a real spaceship anymore. I've come to a realization that that's unlikely. I just want to be able to do the things that I want to be able to do when I want to do them without really having to worry. That would be my ideal scenario. Now I'm not there yet, and that's probably a utopia I won't achieve either. But so buy a new graphics card just to spin the fans. Nothing more ironic than the technophobe science writer. It's a slightly congruous thing, isn't it? I like talking about tech and spaceships and stuff, but I used to be a much more technically interested person, if that makes sense. But nowadays, I can't be bothered. As long as it still works, I understand it. I don't want to. Maybe that's a getting older thing. As I just don't have the willingness to learn some new stuff in the same way. DJ Kirby, I'm happy if I can pay the bill. Yeah, well, that's the thing. You say if there's enough money coming in that you don't have to worry about keeping the basics going, that's kind of okay. Solid financial security is definitely something to strive for, because that's such a big source of anxiety if it isn't solid. Yeah, I think that's very true. The best thing money can buy is the ability to stop worrying about money. It is indeed. My wife spends 11 months a year reminding me to look after money, and the other month telling me where we have to go on holiday this year. Yeah, see, our holidays are always quite modest. We don't generally travel too far on our holidays because we quite like the UK, which is kind of why we live here. So we like going around the UK. I like foreign travel as well, but I'm not. I don't miss it if I've not been. I mean, I haven't been on an airplane now for 5 years, I don't suppose, and that still feels to me like quite an exotic thing to do, going on an airplane. I know it's not really an exotic thing, but it does. To me, it's kind of an extravagance. Wow, I'm going on an airplane. Whereas it's kind of like, oh, it's just a bus. And I know it's just a bus, but yeah, it's a flying bus. I just want to cover my bills and have enough for the odd Fabergé egg. That's definitely the way to do it. But I think if in your writing you can use the economic situation your character finds himself in, and then roll that backwards a bit through time. Okay, so I did that a bit with my Shadewood stuff. I thought, well, in Shadewood, how am I going to explain the background of these characters a little bit? So one of the things I wanted to do there is basically say, okay, well, one of them comes from a background where she is being cared for, but not in a particularly good way. Okay, so her bills are paid and she's got some accommodation, so she's not out on the street starving, but it's a bit of an abusive environment. So she's kind of in a poorhouse, as we would probably describe it in the UK, or a workhouse. She has to work and strive, but she's kept alive. She doesn't have to kind of go out and fend for herself in that regard, but she has to work hard. So she's used to a lot of hard work, but she's basically looked after. And then you've got another character. So that was kind of Zoella in that example, for those of you who read the story. And then you've got another character, Maru, who everyone tells me I'm giving a hard time to all the time, but actually he's had the best childhood out of all of them. It's only when you become an adult that things go bad. So he's actually had some parents who he's run away from in the story, to their angst, clearly. So he's a little bit of a spoiled brat, actually, because he's had a education, he's had a secure home, but they basically just tried to pressurize him into a particular career that he didn't want. Okay, and so he's rebelled basically and gone off to sort of find his fortune, and then events befall him. So that's a different kind of economic background. And then contrast that with Kiri, who is the sort of the third character. Now she's just a vagabond, okay, as the story opens. She has nobody looking out for her at all. She survives entirely on her wits, okay, and that covers everything: shelter, food, everything, okay, clothing. She has to steal everything to stay alive, okay. So there's nobody trying to look after her at all. If she dies, it's her own fault. If she lives, it's her own responsibility. That's her background. That's how their childhoods have been. So coming out of that, as they come into adulthood, you see that reflected in their natures. So Zoella comes out of it with a kind of caring. We need to look out for each other because that's the only way we survive. So if you look after me, I'll look after you. That's basically the way that she thinks. Maru, by contrast, has the view that, that's the stuff that happens, all that whole food, shelter, accommodation business. I haven't got to worry about that. I've got time for elevated thoughts about where are we going, what does this mean, and what's that happens, all that sort of stuff. So he has space and time in his mindset for, what about this, and what about this big issue over here, and what about the thing and the other thing, and where are we going, and all that sort of stuff. Whereas Kiri, as she starts, is very much, where's the food? When am I next going to eat? Is that person going to try and kill me? Is that person going to try and is that person not going to kill me? Do I need to stab them before they stab me? That's useful formative stuff. So that's how I used it in my writing. And if you look at the elite stuff, you've got Kahina, Salome as she obviously becomes, posh, privileged, effectively money no object, rank, power, position, but not everything is sweetness and light in that world, because she's the third daughter, and she's recalcitrant, and the other two daughters are all scheming and all that sort of stuff. So it's not a very pleasant environment to live in. But there's lots of power and prestige, and money isn't an issue. So they live in a glorious palace, but they're not happy. So she's privileged and blah, blah, and then she loses it because of the situation that she finds herself in, and then basically then it's forced to survive on the wits, and realises that she actually needs other people to help her. And then contrast that with I can't remember his name now. It's been so long since I read that book. What's his name? Hassan. There we go. Hassan. He's basically poor. He's got a busted up old spaceship that belonged to his granddad that he's trying to get working again, and he's desperately trying to get some sort of reputation so he can get some slightly bigger deals and make some money, because he hasn't got any. And so those economic factors can be really good grist for your character generation mill, if that makes sense, depending on the scenario that they've grown up in. So that's how I use it. I find that quite a useful thing to do. And Kiri gets adopted into a much higher, richer sort of environment. Well, that's very true, you see. So what happens, of course, with Kiri, and I had a lot of fun with this, and it echoes very much one of my inspirations. So those of you who've read Dragonflight by Anne McCaffrey will spot huge similarities between Kiri's journey at the beginning of Shadewood and Lesser, the lady's journey at the beginning of Dragonflight, because what you have at the beginning of Dragonflight is Lesser is just a drudge, a girl who's so covered in grime and muck and everything that nobody even knows she's a girl. It's that bad. And she is rescued from that environment by the Dragon Riders, and eventually impresses one of the queen eggs and becomes a dragon lady. And she's sort of wrenched out of that grinding, awful poverty and put into an elevated position in the society of the Dragon Riders. Kiri has a very similar story. It's very much inspired directly from it, because it was sort of a homage to Anne McCaffrey, who was a big inspiration for me. Help Hassan's being impressed. But Kiri is an orphan. Kiri is effectively a drudge. Kiri's living on her wits in the forest, and steals everything. She's barely articulate. She certainly can't read and write to start with, and she's lifted out of that because she has something that the priestesses of Drayden need. She has this ability to do things, and they need that, and so she's cultivated, and then she works through that environment and becomes more of a citizen of that environment. So she is feral pretty much at the beginning, and they go through a voyage of discovery, classic sort of tale where that is changed, and they become an important individual in the society. And because they're different, because they have a different outlook, because they're not born to it, they sometimes they have more influence as a result of that rather than less, because they have to earn their respect on the way through, and they gain that respect, and as a result people then turn around and pay attention to what they're doing. So those things I find personally really exciting and fun things to write about. So it's no surprises in my current work that I'm doing that again. I've got big extremes in society, that will play out as part of the story. So you've got very, very rich, very, very privileged environments. You've got very, very poor, very, very oppressed, very, very down at heel, just trying to make ends meet kind of environments. And then you've got other types of flavour of society in there as well. And you can compare and contrast. And what's fun is if you've grown up in those societies as an individual, you'll tend to defend that society for quite a long time before you can step away and objectively analyse it for what it is. An awful lot of people will never, I can't even manage that, they will never be able to basically critique or just, or consider that the environment they've grown up in has any faults whatsoever. You see that with a lot of patriotism today in all sorts of different countries. It's quite common in the West. our society is the best. We are the best. Our culture is superior to your culture because it's us. We are the best. We're it's very common in the UK. We're British, as if that's explanation enough. It's like what? And I find it quite amusing, but an awful lot of people take it very, very seriously. Yes, but we're British, as if that's an argument, and it's just ludicrous. But an awful lot of people go, yes, but we're British, and you're like, you realise you're an idiot. And of course, they don't say that out loud, but but it's very common. It's very, very common. Because to admit that is to admit the fault in ourselves. It is. We do. We have deficiencies. It's like I don't want to look too closely at that because I might find something uncomfortable. It certainly starts. And America, America #1. So. Very quickly you realise what you're dealing with. If somebody's like that, you just think there's not a great deal of point in me trying to appeal to a certain type of argument here, is there? Society, religious, lots of cultural environments that people have a hard time looking at. It is, and you can look at, religions are terrible for that as well. How they are, we are right. There is no argument about that. We are right because our holy book says we are right. And I understand that, but it's the same thing at a cultural level. We're British, so we're the best. It's like, well, maybe to you are. Not everybody else agrees with that. And there is a difference between being proud of your country and patriotism. You're quite right, Wintermute, there is. I think there are things that countries can do that you can be proud of, but I don't think a lot of people. I don't know. I'm not sure it's all that nuanced for an awful lot of people. They want a reason to be part of a tribe, and that maybe that's a very comfortable place for humans to be. God is on our side, said everybody. Yes, that's very true, isn't it? We're fighting for this. We're fighting for good. We're fighting for the right. We're fighting. Are we the good guys? That classic sketch. And if you bound your identity to a particular group or belief, anything that doesn't agree with that group or belief gets seen as a direct attack on the person. And that's the thing. I think because if that group fails, part of your identity is. Part of your identity goes with it, that's why a lot of this tribalism is there. I am part of this community, therefore this community needs to continue to exist, and I will defend that community against what I perceive as a threat, or what that community perceives as a threat. So an interesting dichotomy at the moment is that the British liberal left wing look down on patriotism, whereas the working class, they claim to champion value. Yeah, so there's huge dichotomies in that whole left-right politics thing at the moment. It seems very confused. Nobody seems to quite know who's supporting who anymore. I'm a very centristy sort of person, which probably means I haven't thought about it enough. But I've never liked extremism in any forms, to be honest. I find it fascinating, but I don't like it. 4 million lemmings can't be wrong. Well, sometimes I think we cannot look at things we are part of objective. Harry, I think you're right, because it's very hard to be objective. You have to really think long and hard about it, and know yourself well enough. Because we've all got great capacity for self-deception. We're very, very good at that. Constructing a narrative that reinforces our effective position. So and I know I do it. For example, I've seen myself at work thinking, and I'm sure many of you have subscribed to this. Is what is you kind of get to that. It's probably not conscious, but it's probably what is the most uplifting, beneficial explanation of events that I can conjure up that doesn't conflict with any of the evidence that's available. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so they can't prove that I didn't do that. Therefore, it's possible that I did. Therefore, that becomes the narrative that I'm therefore going to spin. How many of you will admit to doing something like that? I know I've done that. Okay, that is a character flaw. Because and I think it's like that. My only excuse there is because of writing, I can construct narratives that make sense. That's maybe a small superpower that I can abuse at times. So, what is the most advantageous retelling of events that can actually not be denied by the available facts? Dear. Haunted Life, Drew. Money is fake and life under capitalism is basically slavery. Also true. I'm quite I am probably, yeah. You see, this is the thing. I can argue from both sides of the political spectrum quite effectively. I can, some people will say I'm very well. You're very left wing, aren't you, with your talk of capitalism being bad and sort of stuff. And then other people will say, "Oh, you're awfully right wing, because you value the establishment and you like the traditions and all this sort of stuff." And I see benefits and failings all around. So I don't know. I don't know what I am really. Or maybe I'm apolitical. I suppose I can put myself into the motivations of people who think on either sides. So I can understand why. People on the right wing of politics act the way they do. I understand why they're doing that, and I can see the narrative that they tell themselves, and it makes sense. And likewise, I can see the narrative that people on the left, we use as well, and I can see that makes sense as well. And the two, I can quite happily in my head see both narratives over the same set of events. And I don't know. the problem I have over the years is I've because I'm used to writing from lots and lots of different perspectives, I'm not sure which one I think is correct anymore. Or if I've actually got any of my own thoughts, or maybe I've just got my own character interpretations of different events. I don't know. So I suppose when you're stuck in a dead-end job with no hobbies, all you have is your identity, and people attacking that creates an opposition and division. I suppose it's the luxury of the well-off to be objective. But that's a good observation. Should we have time? If you've got the luxury to sit down and have a think about it, and your livelihood doesn't depend directly upon it, that's a privilege, isn't it? That's what I try to do: understand motive rather than agree or disagree. I do, and it's okay to not have an opinion on something. Carl Sagan was very wise on that when he was challenged with, "Do you believe this or not?" And he said, "Well, I haven't made up my mind yet." "When will you make your mind up?" He said, "I may never make my mind up." Because not all the evidence is in. I don't have enough information to make a judgment. I think that's a perfectly reasonable position. Glenn says, "I think I've been on both sides of some issues, and I can see the motivations for both beliefs in some cases, and they're both wrong." Well, this is the thing, and this is a useful thing for writing, because you can put yourself into the mindset of the characters on either sides of a political divide, or a religious divide, or economic divide, or a policy divide, or whatever it happens to think. All of those things are quite useful things for a writer to be able to do, because it means that your characters come across as more realistic. If for example, in there's a scene, I can't remember exactly what happened now, but in Reclamation, in my Elite one, where Salome is trying to defend slavery, and she does it very well, because I basically sat down and went, okay, so what are all the good reasons why this would work? Let's just be completely an imperial for a moment. How would I justify it to the populace? And I'll do this. Okay, well, it gives security. It gives there's honour. There's safety. There's reputation. To consider all these kind of good things is why it's a good system. And then compare and contrast with the Federation, which is very capitalist, where you guys have got debt, and you've got unsecurity, and you've got abuse, and you've got tawdry concerns about money and all these sort of things. You can put yourself into that haughty sort of thing, and then of course you can flip it round and say, yes, but slavery is bad, and all that sort of stuff, and you can put yourself into the opposite corner. All of those sort of things, and that's a useful thing from a writer, to be able to look at things from different perspectives and go, actually, yes, from that perspective, it makes total sense. And if you are in the establishment and you've got a lot of power, you don't want to lose that power. If you've got a lot of money, you don't want to lose that money. So you're going to do things that will protect your power and or your money. If you haven't got any power, or if you haven't got any money, or combination thereof, then you can attack the establishment because you've got nothing to lose, have you? Because you don't have anything anyway. So, there are different perspectives, and I completely understand why both of those make sense. They do, even though they're entirely different viewpoints on the same thing. Are we debating scones or scones? Is it scones or is it scones? Cream first or jam first? Well, I don't know. Is it cream first or jam? Well, I think the more important question there that we need to get at Big 39 GT is does the jam go on the top or does the cream go on the top? That's the important question. And as for tea, I mean, does the milk go in first or does the tea go in first? Now, those are the really important questions of our time. The problem education system, for the most part, does not encourage children and students to study more than one viewpoint of an argument debate. Everything's black and white with no in between. And yeah, I mean, education is a huge problem. I mean, I've been into schools, and talked about writing. I've talked about writing, and the sort of things that you need to do as a writer, and to start with, some of the questions you get from children are very, very revealing as to what they think of different things. I mean, quite often one of the first questions is, have you written a book? Which I always find is quite a funny one. It's like going to a scientist. Have you ever used a microscope? Or to a tennis player. Have you ever picked up a ball? I always find that quite a funny one. After you get past those questions, one of the really early questions always is, how much money do you make? Which, from and usually late primary school, early secondary school is the type of things that I've seen to. And to get that question that early on is, I find, a little bit disquieting. There's no questions about why do you want to be a writer? What sort of stories do you write? Those things you have to tease out of the conversation as you get further into it. But the questions about how much money do you make, what sort of questions around that kind of come out much earlier in that conversation, which I always found a bit disheartening. Are you of a malicious kid? That's right. And when I ask them what books do you like, half the class have no idea. They can't name a book that they like, which is awful. Some of them do, fortunately, but quite a lot of them don't. And then when you get on to the subject of how many of you like writing, they all kind of look at you as if you're completely mad, as if you've asked for a lightly grilled ferret in a bun. How many of you like lightly grilled ferrets in buns? And you go like, what? When you delve a little bit deeper and you find out what they're doing in school, it's no surprise that they've been entirely put off the topic of writing, because the creativity is kiboshed from a really magnetized ferret. It's kiboshed from a really early age. With all this subjunctive clauses and what's the current one? The Vogue. Fronted adverbials. Who the hell knows what a fronted adverbial is? They learn all this technical stuff, and they have to be tested on it, and they have to write sentences which use technical complexities that I don't know. I kind of do now know what a fronted adverbial is, only because I've been exposed to it so many times. And you're kind of like, why do you need to know what a fronted adverbial is at the age of 9, when you should be exploring your creativity by writing some stories about, in my case at school, whoosh went the rocket, So, and the problem being is the only way that the powers that be can assess progress is by saying, did you understand this thing? Yes or no? Can you point at the noun, the verb, the bad piece of grammar, the thing, blah, 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 blah. And it's a yes or no, it's an unnegotiable answer. So it's easy to tick box, it's easy to mark. And therefore that's progress. Whereas, when, and I've asked the teachers in many situations, do you do creative writing in your curriculum? And the answer is they just don't. There's no time, and it's they can't mark it. They can't objectively go, yes, that's good, that's bad. All they can do is check the grammar and the spelling and the front of the verbials, it's like the creativity is being crushed. I know Haunted Loaf says, I know because I Googled it after you mentioned it last time. And that's the problem. You're never ever going to use it again. I don't know what the front of the verb did. And Badly Befang has had to write, I will not do this 100 times, but I had to do that actually. See, I was lucky. I was so lucky that I had an English teacher at school who spotted that I was writing. And he was excited by that because I was the only kid in his class that basically wrote stories because I liked writing stories. Nobody else did it. And he was, he had his eyes open enough to spot that in me at the age of 14, and as a result, fanned my creativity. Gave me books. He said, "You'll like this. Read this one," and he was just giving me books. I thought this was really weird to start with, and I quickly learned to appreciate it. But the being taught by rote. And the fun, when you say to these children, and you say things, I love writing. Writing is so much fun because you can do this and you can do that, and they just look at you completely. It's back to magnetized ferrets again. They don't understand. What do you mean? It's fun. It's a chore. It's a horrible thing. And I see the same with the science, to be honest, because it's just dry facts. Learn this, learn that. Do you know this? Do you know that? There's no kind of like, wow, we just discovered that you put sodium in water, it explodes, or lithium, that's even better, boom, all that sort of stuff. They don't do that anymore. I don't know if it's health and safety or, budgets or time, whatever it happens to. They just don't do it. They don't do any of the kind of wow, exploding stuff as much now. So I fronted the verb. I can't remember now. I don't know what a fronted the verb is. I've forgotten. I just know it's a thing that the kids have to learn. Or even maths. I mean, maths is. I mean, I challenge anybody to describe maths as fun because I don't get it. But my son loves maths. He's managed to get through it and still retain his enthusiasm for the subject. And even computer programming, the ability to get a computer to do something that you want it to do. I mean, that's a cool thing, right? So all those sort of things, and it's not the teacher's fault. It isn't the teacher's fault. This is definitely not a dig at the teachers because they're forced, in the UK at least, I don't know what it's like in other countries, but they're forced to teach this turgid curriculum. And there's no space for creativity in that curriculum. And there's not even any space for going back and repeating something to make sure you understand it. If you didn't understand it on your first pass through, sorry, you're getting left behind, mate. Which is so hard on the kids today. Really awful. Because if you don't grasp the concept the first time through, that's it, you're adrift. Because any subject that comes along after that builds on that previous subject, you can't get. So the building block that you need isn't there. So you just stumble along and hope for the best. There isn't time to reinforce things. There isn't time to do the creativity. And they're jamming stuff into the curriculum, here in the UK in particular, which is, they're doing things at GCSE that I did at A-level. They're doing things at primary school that I did in GCSE, which is the next level up. And it's just, you look at these kids and they've just got no zing to them because they're just, I've just got to learn these facts. Teacher, leave those kids alone, you're quite right. You challenge anyone to tell you maths is fun, but you love space things. Yeah, space things are basically maths. It's the passion. I mean, I remember going in and reading this, and some things were boring, obviously. We had to read Shakespeare at school. I never really got Shakespeare at all, other than a few choice phrases which are worth repeating. Some of the set texts we had at least were relevant and were interesting. Whereas some of the stuff they choose as set text now is You know, they're not. And they also don't finish it. This is the other thing that I thought was bizarre, is that there wasn't a concept of going away and read this in your own time. That doesn't happen apparently anymore. They only read certain chapters and they don't actually finish the book. So the children don't actually know how the story ends. It's like, you can't do that to a book. That's exactly wrong. So I don't know. My first piece of sci-fi writing was in the middle of a piece of coursework I did for my law degree. It was supposed to be writing a 250-word preamble for a constitution based on Edgar Rice Burroughs' Barsoomian Society. I wasn't familiar with the John Carter novels at the time, so I made up a bunch of sci-fi stuff to put in the middle. I got chewed out for it. The lecturer told me he would have marked it well if it had been related to those books rather than the original. Interesting. I don't know what the answer to that is. It's creativity is such an undervalued thing, and I suppose that's another. I mean, maybe it's an observation about society now. Is that people don't have time to be bored because there's always something there to stimulate you. If you have a moment of downtime, you pick up your phone and start scrolling, or you stick on Netflix, and there's always a show that you haven't seen an episode of. You know, or you're on your browser and there's a billion gazillion websites to keep yourself occupied. I think just being stuck. I mean, how many of you, who are similar age to me, remember sort of wet Sunday afternoons when the weather was bad? Your parents, I don't know what the parents were, they were just having a snooze probably, and you were kind of like, well, there's nothing to do, so you found things to do, didn't you? Or your mum said, get out from under my feet. If you don't find something to get yourself occupied, I'll give you something to get occupied with, which you knew was going to be some awful chore. So you basically kept out of your mum's way and found something to do. You experienced boredom, and then boredom motivated you to go and do something. And it wasn't to be entertained by a screen because they didn't exist. I don't know, we spent all our times doing things, sometimes we're out in the garden making camps or going off or mucking about with our bikes, and why don't you exactly switch off your television set and go do this boring and the creative people. I don't know. Sometimes I think you need that boredom to be creative. I don't think you can teach creativity. You can teach some techniques for being creative and honing it, but I think creativity comes out of sometimes being bored. I don't know. Going to the back of the boardroom and finding forcing your imagination to work overtime. And I think those of us who lived through the 80s with those early computer games, like the original Elite, let's use that as a perfect example. There's something there that we had that modern gamers don't have. Is the ability to inject your imagination into a game, because the game is so limited by any technical standard that you can apply today, and yet you were able to vicariously live out a sort of space commander's dream in this very, very primitive by modern standards computer game, because the game didn't do it all for you, because it was only line graphics, vector graphics. It was primitive and there wasn't much going on in the game. You injected your imagination in as a young person and basically made yourself the hero of a story that was playing out in your head and had adventures between the different star systems, despite the fact that the game didn't paint in anything for you. You painted it in your imagination. Whereas today, the games are amazing. I mean, they're amazing in all regards, no matter which game you're talking about this, by any comparison to old-fashioned games. They're just leagues away, right? But they do so much for you. There isn't nearly as much space for your imagination to go, oh, I wonder if it looks like that, or I wonder if it looks like this, or what's actually going on here, and who's in that spaceship, and all those sort of things, because it's painted for you. In high def graphics. I don't know. As a console player, I'm going to have to use my imagination to play Elite. Yes, I know. Sorry about that. That's awful. My feeling is the lack of a handrail leading you through a theme park is why Minecraft is so very popular. So Minecraft to me is almost like sort of space Lego. I used to love Lego when I was a kid, and I would spend hours just playing with Lego. You could stick me up there after lunch on a Sunday afternoon, and I'd be there till tea time. No problem at all. Give me 4 or 5 hours to play with my Lego. I'm done. That's absolutely fine. I don't need to be sociable to play with my Lego. Awesome. So I completely get Minecraft. you know, those sort of things are a big. I think you know, some of us older gamers benefited from those years, because those years can't really be created again now, because games like that don't exist. I mean, I suppose they do indie things and various others, but it's not the same. They're not. They're not. Now that's nostalgia, looking back on things that were, rather than we lived through it back at the time. Adult Lego is definitely a thing. You see, I mean, yeah, I quite like. I can see the attraction of those big Lego. Lego's changed though. Is Lego is, and you know, I still like Lego. I haven't played with Lego in any meaningful way. Actually, I did build a Hogwarts bus for my nephew a few months ago for his birthday, but that's the last time I played with some Lego actually. But the interesting thing there is that Lego has now become, right. You buy the space shuttle, or you buy the Death Star, or you buy a Star Destroyer, or buy a Hogwarts bus, or you buy a. It's very brand specific item focused. Whereas in my day, back in the day, yeah, everything was green and it was all fields. You just got Lego. Okay, you didn't get this. Here's a Star Destroyer. If you wanted to make a Star Destroyer, you went, okay, how am I going to make a Star Destroyer? There's a long bit, and I'll put a top bit, and you kind of just. You made your own Star Destroyers, and you made your own spaceships, and then you had adventures with the things that you made. There wasn't so much this concept of this is the right way to do it, and here's the instructions, and you build the thing. You know, it was more right. There's just a box of bricks. Go go for it. You know, so. It has changed, and I don't know how. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many kids today would, if you gave them a box of Lego with no instructions, what would they do with it? Would they create things? Do they build it? I mean, hopefully they do. But my experience has shown me more recently with Lego that they basically get the adult to build the thing that's on the outside of the box, and then they play with that thing. It becomes a toy. I don't know. So a Meccano, you see, Meccano was good. Yeah. I got Meccano as a child, and I think my father had more fun with it, because Meccano was a bit fiddly when you were young, wasn't it? See, I used to make Mad Monks says I used to make Lego spaceships with Lego standard bricks. Yeah, so I did that as well, because all you needed really was a few sort of snub nose things, a few pointy things, and some wings, and boom, you got a spaceship, haven't you? I don't know, but I think. We don't try to what's the word I'm looking for? We don't try to incubate. We don't try and incubate creativity. That's something that is a it's very. How do you measure creativity? How do you say yes, well done? That was a creative thing you did there. We don't celebrate it very well, and we don't nurture it. As nurture, there we go. Paddy McGinty was there. We don't nurture it, and it's a shame, because that's a really, really important thing that we don't have so much of. My kids do play with my old Lego. That's just a huge collection of standard bricks, especially the case for my son, who's the older two. He'll make random stuff on his own. He loves doing that more than following instructions. Well, that's encouraging. Well done. I'm glad to hear that, Jian, because I think that's important. These days it's often more inconvenient to buy just random Lego bricks. Well, that's it, Big 39 GT, that's exactly it. Back in the day, you would watch an episode of Blake 7, then you would rush to the Lego to build the Liberator. You would, and I built the Enterprise. I mean, making the Enterprise was actually really hard with Lego, because you can't make circles, can you? At least with generic Lego. I didn't say we whittled down our own Lego out of coal shaving. It wasn't quite that bad. The problem is, what concerns me here is it's actually probably my generation now that's actually in charge of all of these things. So why are we legislating or putting things into policy and making crappy curriculums for these children today, when we valued those things when we were younger, and we moan the fact that they don't exist? But we're in charge now. It's our generation, if you like, that's in the policy making decision place, surely. So why aren't we doing that when we suffered the lack. I think that bit I don't get. So I try wherever I can to basically say, yeah, all those things that they're teaching you in school, you don't need to worry about them too much. Don't worry about it, because the fun stuff is this bit. Fronted adverbials, don't worry about it. Just pass the exams and then forget about it. You'll be fine. Isn't really what the teachers want you to say. At least not the head teachers anyway, but some of the younger teachers think it's quite funny. So I don't know. Coal shavings, luxury, we had to whittle our own gym bones. Oh dear. Which is probably a good point to stop the stream, I think. Dear. I haven't told you how we used to use our own whittle. It's like those conversations with computer people. Well, do you remember in the back when we programmed in C++? You had C++, we only had C. You had C, well, we only had Pascal. Pascal, okay, well, you used those, do you? Well, we only had binary. It's a binary. Oh, well, we only had ones and zeros. And somebody will always try and go back. Well, yeah, you had ones and zeros. We had to do everything with just zeros. It's just a reduction ad absurdum. Down to whoever can be the go back in time far enough. My first job, believe it or not, Mad Monk stuff. Do you think it's funny? We had punch cards. I did punch cards. Yeah, punch cards is where I started as well. So back in the very, very dim and early days of my career, or what I laughingly refer to as my career. But there we go. Basic, yes, Basic was good. Pascal, we had Fortran, yes, all those sort of things. So it's all basically stuff. But I don't know where I was kind of going with all that sort of thing. I think the thing is to, as a writer, use tools like what's the society doing with its politics, what's the society doing with its economics, what's the society doing with all of its structures, and use those to inform your character, because you'll probably find that helps you make a more interesting character than it's just, okay, this person is a bit selfish, this person is a bit angry, this person is a bit whatever it happens to be. Why? Have they got a political cause they believe in? Have they been the victim of economics or depression in the economic sense? All of those things can help you make maybe a more rounded kind of character. I don't know. It's food for thought. So there we go. Valve switches and square lined paper. Still going. You had paper. We had to do. We had to do it on recycled loo roll. No, you had valves. Yes, well, we had to do it with soldering irons. It's all good stuff. Anyway, my friends, I think we'll call it a good night there. Thank you very much for coming. Very, very good thoughts in the chat actually tonight. So well done everybody for just chucking in stuff. It's fun to see what other people think. And be in an environment, I suppose, where you can have good, what are considered today to be maybe unpopular opinions, or opinions that may be a bit old-fashioned or out of tune with the zeitgeist of the modern era, and that's okay, because we all represent different eras, right? So we're going to have different types of thinking in our makeup. I think that's all kind of good stuff. But anyway, take care, my friends. The whole point of it overall is that there's a community, okay, where people all look out for each other and chat and talk and explain things and listen and try and understand each other better. And that's all positive stuff. So have yourself a fantastic week ahead. I will see you on Thursday for hopefully the conclusion of Expedition 5 in No Man's Sky. There'll probably be a Star Citizen, onwards to the retro stream on Saturday, and obviously back around next week. So be good. Have a fantastic week ahead. Don't work too hard. Don't tell your boss I said that. Okay. Take care, my friends. Be good. See you soon, and right on, as always.